Hello and welcome to another session on literary criticism. Let's continue with Sir Philip Sidney's defense of poesy. Sir Philip Sidney was an Elizabethan courtier and a gentleman. He was a man of calm temperament and a very lovable and a very kind person. There is an interesting story about Sidney. Once, when Sidney was fighting the Battle of Zutphen, Zutphen is a place in Netherlands. He was a soldier. He was mortally wounded. He was very thirsty and he reached for his bottle of water. But then, just as he was about to drink water, he sees another man, a soldier, equally wounded as Sidney was, and his thirst, or he was in the same agony of thirst and death as Sidney was. Sidney felt pity on seeing the plight of this wounded soldier, and he poured water onto his mouth, the soldier's mouth, and told him, "Thy need is greater than mine." So such was his attitude. So when Stephen Gosson, who was a Puritan and was totally against poetry, Stephen Gosson wrote his School of Abuse, dedicating it to Sidney even without asking his permission, and finding fault with all the poets, especially Sidney. Sidney did not give the same type of reply. Sidney, being a man of calm temperament, wrote to him an apology and a reply to Stephen Gosson's School of Abuse. Anyway, but the ones who read Sidney's defense of poetry or defense of poesy can very clearly make out that Sidney's line of defense of poetry closely follows Gosson's line of attack. Stephen Gosson's attack on poetry was based on 4 points. First and foremost, Gosson says that poetry is a waste of time, and that a man could employ his time more usefully than in poetry. Secondly, he said that poetry is the mother of lies. Thirdly, he calls poetry the nurse of abuse, and that the last point, and that Plato has rightly banished poets from his ideal commonwealth. Now, Sidney takes up each one of these charges. Sidney draws information from various sources because during that time criticism did not exist. Sidney's time, it is the early 16th century, and therefore criticism did not exist at that time. And texts were unavailable for Sidney to refer and all. So Sidney turned to the ancient classics and the Italian writers of Renaissance, particularly Homer, Plato, Aristotle, Plutarch. Among the Greeks, and Cicero, Virgil, Horace, Ovid, and among the Romans. He also turned towards Minter, Scaliger, and all among the Italians. So as I told you earlier, there was no criticism in England when Sidney started writing this defense of poesy. So this defense of poesy can be considered as, in fact, the important work which kickstarts the criticism or the line of criticism in England. So with Sidney, and not just that, even poetry was not much. After Chaucer in the 14th century, after Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, not much great poetry happened. There were only very few sparks of poetry. Yes, of course, poetry, there was poetry, of course, but not great poetry, as like, Chaucer. It was in fact a barren period for nearly 150 years. And therefore, you can't say that great poets, there were great poems existing at that time. And Rama also was in swaddling clothes. So with the publication of Sidney's Defense of Poetry, his critical outlook was evident. So the Defense of Poetry, or an apology for poetry, was written by Philip Sidney in response to Stephen Gossen's a School of Abuse. Stephen Gossen was a Puritan pamphleteer, and he blamed all the playwrights and theatre in particular, and also the poets in general, for leading English society astray. Gossen felt that they were responsible for making or turning people into immoral activities. Gossen dedicated the pamphlet to Sidney, I told you, right, when he wrote School of Abuse, without asking his permission, without telling him or asking his permission. He mentioned Sidney's name, or he mentions Sidney's name in his School of Abuse. So he has dedicated it. He dedicated the pamphlet to Sidney without asking permission. Gossen's abuse, also called a pleasant invective against poets, pipers, players, jesters, and such like caterpillars of a commonwealth. That's otherwise called in this manner also. A subtitle. It's a pleasant invective against poets, pipers, players, jesters, and such like caterpillars of a commonwealth. He denounces, Gossen in his School of Abuse, denounces the poets as father of lies. The title of the treatise is significant, for Gossen seems to attack not poetry and drama as such, but rather what he thinks is their abuse. He feels that the drama and poetry tend to abuse humanity. He concedes that there were, even in his good day, good plays and good poems, but by good plays he meant not those that were artistically perfect, but those that were morally wholesome. See, remember, Gossen was a Puritan. So for him it was all religious kind of things. It had nothing to do with aesthetics. So it had nothing to do with a beautiful poem. To him meant religious, moral, didactic poems. Anything that were aesthetic or anything that was artistic never pleased or never interested him. So for Gossen, it was all to do with morality. He was very religious and very pious and in his belief. So let's begin. Sidney's Defense of Poesy. As I told you earlier, Stephen Gossen's attack on poetry was based on 4 important points. He indicted poetry, or he abused poetry on 4 counts. The first one was that poetry is a waste of time. So let's look into that first. Now here, how Sidney uses, or how Sidney, the technique that Sidney uses is a persuasive method, the argumentative method. So he uses an argumentative method. He uses the classic rhetoric and used rhetorical devices like metaphors, allegories, because there was a lot to do with censorship during those periods. The king or the crown censored all publications and banned anything which were considered immoral or which threatened the Tudor dynasty as such. Puritans like Gosson, though they may have been motivated by strong moral beliefs, also attacked the creative environment in which poets worked, driving them into the questionable freedom offered by the protection of the noble courts. So the poets were actually caught in between the court and the religious critics. They were in between the court who sponsored them. Of course, these poets had patrons, right? The courts who sponsored them and these religious critics. So they were in between, the poets, and they had a tough time. The first point, let's take up the first point, that what Stephen Gosson says and how Sidney argues against it. Stephen Gosson, in his School of Abuse, says that poetry is a waste of time. So according to Sidney, poetry, far from being despised or hated, should be crowned. It should be considered very important. It should be crowned. Okay. It is the oldest branches of learning. It is this milk that brought forth tougher knowledge like philosophy, history, etc. It is superior to philosophy by its charm, and it is more universal than history. It is highly moral and superior than science. And if you look at law, if you take the example of law, it gives importance to human feelings and humanity, unlike law. Law gives importance to what? Civic goodness alone. They are not concerned about human feelings or humanity. They just want to keep civic life perfect. Okay, so they give only importance to civic goodness. According to Sidney, pastoral poems gives an insight of the contemporary events and life in general. Now, by pastoral poems, what do you mean by pastoral poems? Pastoral poems is the idea of an idealized vision of country life, where humans, okay, they live in a very simple and harmonious blend with nature, and therefore it is like they are bringing in an idealized version of the country life. They have an idealized vision of the country life, and thus the contemporary city life, the sophisticated city life, is contrasted with the idealized country life. Okay, and therefore you can say that it gives an insight to the contemporary events and life in general. The elegy brings through its kindly pint the weakness of mankind and the wretchedness of the world. So elegy brings out the weakness of mankind and the wretchedness of the world. And what about satire? Satire, by its pleasant ridicule, it's a pleasant ridicule, and it brings out human mistakes and corrects these mistakes. So satire is also didactic. It does a lot of correction. Okay, it ridicules human weaknesses, human follies, mistakes, and it corrects the mistakes. It helps man to correct his mistakes. And the comedy, what about comedy? By its ridiculous imitation of common errors of life, also does the same correction of human attitude as that of satire. And then tragedy. Tragedy teaches us the uncertainties of this world. When we consider the world as permanent, life teaches us the decay and fall of man. And then we have the lyric. Lyric by its sweet praise praises all the sweet and praiseworthy or noble qualities of life. The epic represents high, lofty truths, philosophy in a very lofty, very high manner. And so he says that poetry does not deserve any sort of such abuse as hurled by these haters like Stephen Gorson, these Puritans, these detractors. Okay, so poetry is not to be considered as a silly thing. Poetry has its importance. Poetry is to be crowned rather than being abused. Okay, it is these detractors or these enemies or these haters that actually abuse poetry. Poetry is not abusing anybody. Poetry only brings in goodness, and that's what we saw from the pastoral poems, the satires, the elegy, the tragedy, lyric, epics, all these brings in high philosophical thoughts. It does a lot of correction, didactic effect. Okay, and therefore Sidney says that it is not to be considered as a silly or trivial or bad thing. Now the first charge that Stephen Gorson makes against poetry was poetry as a waste of time. Sidney says that no learning is so good as that which teaches and moves to virtue, and that nothing can both teach and amuse so much as poetry does. In the essay, Societies, poetry was the main source of education. He remembers the ancient Greek society that respected poets. The poets are always to be looked upon, so poetry is not a waste of time. Even the Greek societies, the Greek people of the earlier times considered poets as very important people. Second charge that was laid against poetry by Gorson is that is the same words of Plato. He uses the same words of Plato. Plato called poetry mother of all lies. So Stephen Gorson's second charge was that poetry is mother of all lies. He uses Plato's words. And Plato banished poetry. You must have studied that in the first module from his ideal world. Sidney vehemently denies that poetry is the mother of lies. He says it is incorrect. He says that poet is the least liar. He says an astronomer may tell a lie when he records his measurement of the heights of the stars, because his measurement may prove to be wrong. He may lie. A geometrician may lie if his propositions prove to be false. He could give reasons, he could give excuses, he could lie. A physician may prove to be a liar if his medicine kills the patient. But a poet never tells lies. Because why? When you look at the astronomer, if you look at the geometrician, if you look at the physician, they all affirm to things. They say what they say is right, and therefore when things go wrong, they tend to lie. They can be proved wrong, and when it goes wrong, they lie. Okay, whereas a poet never tells lies because he affirms to nothing. He never says that this is the correct one or this is what it is. He does not say that. He affirms to nothing. A historian may lie because there is no guarantee whatever he assumed was right. He could be right, he could not be, or he may be wrong. What do we know about the great past people? We know it only from the history texts. What if these historians were lying? What if some of which were their imagination? But we study it, we learn it, and we try to assert the state that is true because the historian has said so. What if the historian was lying? Because there is no guarantee that he could be right. So, an astronomer, a geometrician, a historian, a physician, all others make false statements because they affirm what they say is true. They can be proved wrong and hence they lie. Okay, but a poet never affirms and therefore he can never lie. The question of truth or falsehood would arise only when a person insists on telling a fact. The poet does not present fact, but fiction embodying truth of an ideal kind. He does not present fact. He presents a fiction, an imagination, but there is truth in it, a truth of an ideal kind. Okay? So so the charge that Gosen has made against poetry, that poetry is a mother of lies, as the wordings which he took from Plato, poetry as a mother of all lies, is incorrect. The third point, or the third point on to which Stephen Gosen attacks poetry is when he calls poetry as a nurse of abuse. So Sidney turns to the third objection against poetry. Gosen says, quote, "It abuses men's wit, training it to wanton sinfulness and lustful love," unquote. Particularly applied to comedy and sometimes also to the lyric, elegy and epic, into all of which the love element enters. And sometimes even lustful love or illegitimate affairs also can be seen. So this is Gosen's irritation. Gosen says that it abuses men's intelligence, men's wit, and poetry trains him to sinful things. There's always this lustful love and all, and therefore it can be seen in comedy, it can be seen in lyrics, it can be seen in elegy, it can be seen in epics. So he is actually referring to the classical stories or classical poems. For example, I can give you an example. Homer's Iliad. It is all about Paris' love for the already married Helen. There can be, these can be poetry which shows an illegitimate affair. To this charge, Sidney replies that poetry does not abuse man's wit, but it is man's wit that abuses poetry. So you cannot say that poetry is abusing man's wit. You have to say that man's wit, man's intelligence is what abuses poetry. Even it is the same for arts and science also. If in the hands of the wrong person, science can also be misused. Facts can also be misused. Religion can also be misused. Correct? Example, if I am to give you an example with the contemporary world, what about atom bomb? The making of the atom bomb. Newton made this, but he never insisted that it should be dropped or it should be used. He said that it should never be used, but it was used, right? It was used by the Americans because the Japanese, they bombarded Pearl Harbor, and therefore what they did to retaliate, to give a tit for tat, they bombarded Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? So science in the hands of a wrong person can lead to such terrible disasters. Now we do not know if COVID-19 is also a political war. We do not know if it is a World War Z. We don't know, right? You have heard of the novel World War Z. There's a novel called World War Z which was published in 2006. The same COVID-19 pandemic, you can see the same thing, everything, right from starting from these places, the same places, from China to the whole world is being affected. The European countries mainly is being affected. People are turning into zombies. Okay, that's World War Z or World War Z. Okay, so science in the hands of wrong people can lead to a lot of problem. So likewise, he says poetry, even in the case of poetry, it is the same. You cannot generalize all poems on this charge because there were poetry without sinful love also. Just because you pick out few poems which shows sinful love doesn't mean that all the poems were sinful or all the poets wrote about sinful love. It was not like that. Many of them had written great poems which were didactic, which were morally good. So you cannot say that it is poetry that abuses man's wit. You should say that it is man's wit that abuses poetry. You can't generalize. Okay. So he says you cannot generalize all poets on this charge. But again, the time when these poems were used, it had an effect on these people. That is also right, correct. At that time, it taught them lessons. Some, by reading these, they also understood that there were several things that were to be avoided also, right? From these poems, if it is the sinful love, illegitimate love poems also, from this people learned to, or it taught them lessons. So they were not to be considered less valuable, right? From this, okay, if you look at Homer's Iliad, it is Paris' love for the already married Helen. And not only that, the atrocities against women, the atrocities against another country is all vividly portrayed, or not another state or another kingdom is very vividly portrayed, which actually teaches another one a lesson, right? From this we understand that there are certain things that should be avoided. We learn a lot of we learn a lesson, right? So you cannot say that even that is that leads one astray. That actually teaches one good lesson to turn away from these sinful, lustful things. So they were not to be considered less valuable as well. So there are poems which are highly didactic, philosophic and morally good. At the same time, these poems which also showed lustful or sinful love teaches people to move away from it. That also is that teaches them with the tragic end, will tell them how life, or will also teaches them a lesson. So according to Sidney, it is not the problem of poetry but that of the poet. Okay. Sidney discusses, therefore he discusses the difference between poetry, philosophy and history at several points in his essay. He imagines historians and philosophers immediately objecting to the claim that poetry is the medium best suited to teaching and transmitting knowledge. No. He suggests that the representatives of both disciplines would claim to be superior. The history as well as so to him it is people who abuse poetry, and even more abuses are nursed by philosophy and history than poetry, by describing battles, bloodsheds. Not only this, it is also poetry that brings light to knowledge. So he says that nature of a thing is determined not by its misuse but by its right use. Because Sidney, and remember, Sidney discusses this difference, the difference between poetry and philosophy and history at several points in the essay. He imagines historians and philosophers immediately objecting to the claim that poetry is superior. He says that the representatives of these disciplines, that is philosophy and history, may think that they are the only ones who teaches and transmits knowledge, poetry, and that they are superior, but they are wrong, because poetry has the power to bring the two together and to unite them in a peaceful manner. Poetry can teach lessons based on history than use them to convey how man should be rather than how he is. And not only that, unlike philosophy, poetry can do its job in a more approachable and more delightful manner than the complex philosophy. Sidney contrasts poetry with history, which gives only one view and traps readers into a limited and or very limited view. It gives a very limited view. By contrast, poetry offers a range of views and choices. It gives individuals a sense of freedom. Poetry is designed to express emotions and feelings, and it can never be false. So how can you say that poetry is scandalous or it is abusive? How can it be irrelevant to the society? If one has to study the core of humanity and the world of human beings, poetry is the best genre, as it will never prejudice the reader's thoughts like history and philosophy and science would. Thus, in this manner, poetry is presented as superior to other disciplines, and it cannot be treated as what? It cannot be treated as abusive. It is not a mother of lies. It is not abusive. Alright, so the two important charges are answered by Sidney. First one, stating that it is a waste of time. It is not a waste of time. Okay, and the second one is that it is a mother of all lies. Of course not. An astronomer or a physician or a historian or a philosopher may lie because they affirm to things, whereas a poet could never do that. And not only that, the superiority of science and history and philosophy is also are also cleared. Sidney says that poetry is far superior than any of these history, be it history or philosophy or science, because they give only a very limited view and not a broad view. Poetry, on the other hand, gives them it is important to understand human nature only through poetry. In order to understand human nature, you can understand it only through poetry. And the third point was that Stephen Gosling said was poetry is the mother of all, is the nurse of abuses. That also he answers, gives a very good answer, or he gives an answer to that as well. He says that it is not poetry who it is not poetry who abuse people, but people who abuse poetry. Poetry in the hands of a wrong person can lead to abuse, but then you cannot say that poetry abuses people, because it is people who abuse poetry. and not just that, people also learn from good poems and bad poems. So there is a lot of didactic effect happening, and you cannot generalize poets. They were also great philosophic or good didactic poems earlier, not just the ones who, maybe there were few bad poets or bad poems, but even from that the people learn a lesson not to be like them, or they see the tragic end as represented by these poets. So these are the three charges. Now the fourth charge that he says or he takes up is that of Plato's, or the one that associates with Plato. Plato's great condemnation of poetry. Plato is he says that Gaussen has gone wrong in judging Plato. He has not understood the whole history as to why Plato banished the poets from the society. Gaussen has not done a thorough study of why he has done. So Plato found no fault with poetry. Plato knew it was divinely inspired. It was because of the poets of his time who misused poetry to misrepresent gods that Plato banished only those immoral poets of his time and not poetry. In his Republic, he wanted to banish the abuse of poetry and not the poets. He himself was not free from poeticality, which you can find in his dialogues. Plato never says that all poets should be banished. He called for banishing only those poets who were inferior or unable to instruct the children. For Sidney, art is the imitation of nature, but it is not a slavish imitation as Plato views. Rather, it is a creative imagination, according to Sidney. Nature is dull, incomplete, and ugly. It is the artist who turns dull nature into golden color. He employs creative faculty, imagination, and style of presentation to decorate the raw materials of nature. For Sidney, art is a speaking picture. It has spatio-temporal dimension. For Aristotle, human action is more important, but for Sidney, nature is important. Artists are to create art considering the level of the reader. The only purpose of art is to teach and delight, like seen in Renaissance. Sidney favors poetic justice. Now, what is poetic justice? It is a literary device which states that ultimately virtue is rewarded and evil will be punished. That's poetic justice. And that is possible in the poet's world, where good are rewarded and wicked people are punished. Plato's philosophy on virtue is worthless at the battlefield, but poet teaches men how to behave under all circumstances. Moral philosophy teaches virtues through say abstract examples, and history teaches virtue through concrete examples. But both are defective. Poetry, on the other hand, teaches virtue by example as well as by percept. Percept, that is a blend of abstract and concrete together. The poet creates his own world where he gives only the inspiring things, and thus poetry holds its superior position to that of philosophy and history. So, in the poet's golden world, heroes are ideally presented and evils are corrupt. Didactic effects of a poem depends upon the poet's power to move the readers. It depends on the affective quality of poetry like lyric, elegy, satire, comedy, etc. And according to him, epic is the best form as it portrays heroic deeds and inspires people to become courageous and patriotic. This has a relevance to the time that Sydney was in. The 16th century, a period of high nationalism. Do bear that in mind. Sydney's period under the Tudor dynasty. So patriotism was an important concept then. And Sydney, he concludes, quote, so as Plato banishing the abuse, not banishing it, but giving it due honor unto it, shall be our patron and not adversary, unquote. Because Plato in his Aeon rightly gives high and divine commendation to poetry. He describes the poet as light-winged and sacred thing. It therefore reveals Plato's attitude to poetry. In this way, Sydney defends all the charges against poetry and stands for the sake of universal and timeless quality of poetry, making us know why the poets are universal genius. And thus, Sydney strongly defends poetry against accusation made by Stephen Golson on poetry. So you have your textbook with you. So do go through your textbook. There are few extra readings to be done. I have just given you a nutshell of defense of poesy, which is based on, or which you will find easier. That is from the examination point of view, it will be helpful to you. Do read your textbook also, because now that you have your textbook, you can go through your textbook. It is very clearly explained. In case of any doubts, you can approach me. So thank you and keep safe.